Joe Biden called into Morning Joe. I don't know if this was his idea. I'm not sure if this was Morning Joe's idea. But what we do know is that Mika and Joe are friends with Joe Biden. They have been very public about that. So it's not a secret. But anyway, for whatever reason, they seem to think it was a good idea for Joe Biden to call into Morning Joe. I don't think that this is something that helped Joe Biden's campaign. We want to give a shout out here to Philip Lewis because he was the one that announced this on Twitter. President Joe Biden called into MSNBC's Morning Joe this morning. Oh, God. Here is segment 1. We're going to start right about here at 4:33, and then we'll pop into segment 2. Listen to this.
Said there are a lot of people of goodwill who love you, who believe you did a great job in your first term, who are still concerned. Yesterday, the topic came up of the Stephanopoulos interview where you were asked the question, how would you feel if Donald Trump beat you? How would you feel after you lost? And you said, well, as long as I did the best I could do, that's the most important thing. That's caused Democrats concern who believe that losing is not an option. What would you say to those who are concerned by that answer?
It's not an option. And I've not lost. I haven't lost. I beat him last time. I'll beat him this time. And this is a guy who, look, we talk about debates. Look at his performance at debates. He lied over, Trump has 50 lies. I mean, look, this is a guy who says 10% of the universe. I don't want to get into it. He's just a liar.
I don't know what that was right there. Obviously, it looked like he was rumbling or he was starting to rant. You'll hear this later on. It's obvious that he's reading from a script or something because you're going to hear the papers like rumbling in the background. But one thing I want to add there is that, yep, Donald Trump told a lot of lies. Joe Biden also told lies, not as many as Donald Trump did. But I think what Joe Biden is not understanding or not really comprehending is that even through all of those lies, Trump knew what he was saying. And it was very obvious to the American people that Joe Biden did not seem to understand what he was saying. It's just, let's go on.
And he hasn't done a damn thing since the debate. He's been riding around in a golf cart for 10 days or down in Mar-a-Lago talking with his wealthy friend. I'm not running because of these guys, Joe. I'm running because, and you know me well enough to know this from the very beginning, I ran because I never bought on to the trickle-down economic theory. I never bought into the notion that we have to walk away from the rest of the world and cave to Putin or anybody else. I've never believed any of that. And I'm confident that's what the American people are. So what I did was I went out and I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any slippage at all. And with the average voter, I don't care what the millionaires think. And by the way, 97% of all the people who contribute to us are people making under 200, contributing under $200. I think we have the largest contingent ever in history. I'm not positive of that, but I think that's true. And
So you guys see this? He said, I'm not positive of that, but I think that's true. So that's another lie. And like Maura and Joe, I said Maura, good grief. Think about Maura Healey. Mika and Joe don't even correct him on that. Like he called into Morning Joe and lied on Morning Joe. And look at the expression on their face. Look at Mika's facial expression. Look at Joe's facial expression. And I bet in the back of their minds, they're thinking, ooh, maybe this was not a good idea after all.
I want their support, but that's not the reason I'm running. I'm not running about what they think and what they care about. And by the way, you don't see a whole hell of a lot of them flocking to Trump. You don't see a whole lot of CEOs flocking to Trump. You don't see any, you see the major economists out there talking about what I have been able to do. I don't hear anybody talking about his economic plan likely to bring America around.
So he says you don't see a lot of the CEOs flocking to Trump. That's Joe Biden admitting to you that he's in the back pocket of CEOs, which I've already known that. I think a lot of you have known that. But now for people who may not be aware of how electoral politics works and the money that's behind all of it. And now they will know that he's in the back pocket of CEOs. Keep going, Joe.
Keep America first. And by the way, here's Trump talking about all that he's done and Trump and his debate night. He's a pathological liar. He lied about Roe. He refused to accept the outcome of the election. He refused to condemn January 6th, and he says, they claim, he spoke with Putin before he invaded. What the hell are we doing, Joe? What are we doing? This is bizarre.
Yeah. It's a good question. I have a few questions, Mr. President, and I know you know where.
So speaking to Vladimir Putin before the invasion is not a crime. That doesn't mean that Donald Trump told Vladimir Putin to invade, you know? So there's that.
I stand, and yet I have a few questions. First, it's very simple. How can you assure the American people that you won't have another night like the one you did in Atlanta?
Look at my career. I've not had many of those nights. It was a terrible night, and I really regret it happened. But the fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be on faith that can intervene on your way to go to, work tomorrow? Age wasn't, the idea I'm too old. Created over 15 million jobs, 21 million insured for the ACA, beat Big Pharma, relieved student debts for 5 million people, first black woman in the court. So I think.
Here we go with the first black woman again. So you guys see what's happening here. So first and foremost, just because you did those things doesn't mean you're not experiencing cognitive decline. As I told you guys before, you can have good days and you can have bad days. And also, we don't know who was running things behind the scenes. We don't know who was helping you with those things, right? So there's that as well. But he's going back to the past, and we're talking about what is happening right now, presently at this point in time. And this is, again, where Mika and Joe are not going to push back on that. Because, again, they're friends with, and this is a conflict of interest, I think, because Mika and Joe, they are friends with Joe Biden. They have acknowledged this publicly. So obviously, Mika and Joe are not going to be, they're not going to really press Joe too much. They're not going to come at him the way that I think a lot of us would, right? So there is bias here. This interview should have happened. Honestly, this interview shouldn't take place on Fox News, MSNBC, or CNN. It should happen in a neutral setting with people who are not a part of either party. Because obviously, if you're a part of the Republican Party, you're going to be harsher on Joe. If you're part of the Democratic Party, you're not going to be as harsh on him. And then add the fact that you're friends with him. So there's that too. It's pretty obvious.
I had a significant run, and that's how I'd measure me. Measure me what I've done. And by the way, in terms of my neurological capacity, I had a physical, a neurological physical as well in February. It's released. I released all my records, all of them. And I have a neurological test every single day.
There he goes with that again. He has a neurological test every single day. So let me just say something, folks. Doctors have been known to lie. Doctors have been known to lie and to put the information on those records because obviously the president of the United States does have to have a physical, but they've been known to, come on, get out of here. This is a nightmare, a complete nightmare.
I sitting behind this desk and making these decisions. You know it. Both of you know it. They know it. I'm not bad at what I do. And now, it doesn't mean I never make a mistake. I do. But I'm making those decisions.
Mr. President, if anybody in my family had a night like that, like if my Joe had a night like that, or my kids or anybody, I'd probably want to do some sort of workup and medical workup and make sure he's okay. Have you been tested for any age-related illnesses, pre-Parkinson's, or anything like that that might explain sort of having a night like that where you couldn't finish sentences?
Notice that she said pre-Parkinson's, right? So this is similar to what Dr. Jill Stein mentioned.
Look, I was feeling so badly before the debate. When I came back, they tested me for, I thought maybe I had COVID, maybe there was something wrong. I had an infection or something. They tested me, they gave me those tests, I was clear. So, but look, I had a bad night. But the fact of the matter is, look at what I'm doing. I mean, let me put it this way. If there was something that was wrong that night, it's not like it comes and that's one night and it goes away. That's why I've been out. I've been testing myself, been testing everywhere I go, going out and making the case. The night of that debate, I went out. I was out.
So that's part one. Jesus Christ. Let's go to part two. This gets even crazier.
That's why I've been out. I've been testing myself, been testing everywhere I go, going out and making the case. The night of that debate, I went out. I was out till 2 o'clock in the morning. That very night, it drives me nuts, people talking about this. That very night, I'm talking to large crowds. Look at the crowds we've gathered everywhere from Atlanta to North Carolina to Pennsylvania, and look at the enthusiasm. But it was right after. And where the hell's Trump been? What has Trump said or done?
So the problem with that remark from Joe Biden when he said, where has Trump been? Trump's not president of the United States. You are. Okay. So that's part of the problem with this conversation. Trump already served his presidential term. Yes, he's running for office again, but he's not the current president. Obviously, there is going to be much more criticism towards the current president, especially when the economy is not good. That's just how it goes. Just like we had criticism during Trump's presidency, but Trump is not in office right now. So bringing up these statements saying, what's Trump been doing? Where was he at? What was he around? He's not in office.
Except deny and lie about what he's for.
Okay, so you have repeatedly said that all of these people and entities are wrong. And let me go through them. The New York Times editorial board, The Economist, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Boston Globe, Jerry Nadler, Seth Moulton. Let me go to Julian Castro, Tim Ryan, David Axelrod, David Remnick, Richard Haas. Yeah, I know.
So remember, guys, David Axelrod was a part of the Obama administration. So Joe Biden's laughing because obviously he knows who David Axelrod is. But that's a number of people that are saying that he should step down. And also Crypt Keeper himself. What's the guy's name? Eric, you know who I'm talking about. The Crypt Keeper guy, he comes forward every now and then and tells people that we can't go too far left. And also Trump is really dangerous. He was the one that said Bernie was evil. It's like I can see his face, but I can't remember his James Carville. Yes, even the Crypt Keeper, James Carville, has spoken out and said that Joe Biden should step down. I mean, she wasn't finished there. He interrupted. She wasn't finished naming all the people.
Which one you're responding to there, Zeke Emanuel, but they are saying that you should step aside. So what is your plan of attack moving forward?
My
These are pretty big names.
Is to go out and keep doing their big names, but I don't care what those big names think. They were wrong in 2020. They're wrong in 2022 about the red wave.
They weren't wrong in 2020. So here's something again where Mika and Joe don't push back on. They may have been wrong about the red wave in 2022, but they weren't wrong in 2020. Those people were supporting Joe Biden in 2020. They were like, yeah, Joe Biden, he's going to be the one to do this. Carville was the one that was telling everybody Bernie Sanders is too far left and too far radical. Joe Biden is our guy. They stood behind Joe Biden in 2020. So I don't know what he's talking about there.
They're wrong in 2024. And come out with me. Watch people react. You make a judgment. You make a judgment. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I'm going to have all these foreign leaders here. I've been in contact with the new British Prime Minister. Anyway, look, the country, the rest of the world is looking. Our allies are looking for U.S. leadership. Who else do you think could step in here and do this? I expanded NATO. I solidified NATO. Ask your brother about it.
That part right there. Mr. I expanded NATO. Ask your brother about it. Then he goes on to say in Poland. So he's telling Mika, ask your brother about this because I expanded NATO. Again, that is not a bragging point. And this is where I think the generation gap comes in. Younger voters don't particularly applaud this expansion of NATO because they know what that means. That means more war. That means more aggression towards Russia. Obviously, Russia is going to be very upset about that if you continue to move closer and closer to its borders. This is how we got here with the Russia and Ukraine war. So He bragged about this in the interview with George Stephanopoulos, and he's bragging about this again. You cannot go around telling people that, look at what I've done. I've expanded NATO. That's not a winning position anymore. This is not 2003. This is something I've noticed from the Obama coalition, Biden and all of them that were part of the Obama administration. They don't understand. The world has changed. The country has changed. This, touting all these wars and I'm controlling the world and I'm all around here and I'm doing all these things with the different countries. That is not a selling point anymore.
Poland. I made sure that we're in a position where we have a coalition of people of the nations around the world to deal with China, with Russia, with everything that's going on in the world. We're making real progress. The Biden plan, which got in Israel for the Gaza Strip, is something that was adopted by the UN Security Council. Whether it comes to fruition, it's awful close. We'll see.
The Biden plan for the Gaza Strip. Guys, more kids were killed at a school today. Those kids were just playing football. What plan? So I don't know. It sounds like he may have run off script here because, like I said, it's obvious he's probably reading from a piece of paper, but it seems like he's going off script a little bit here.
G7's okay. But look, I'm not going to explain any more about what I should or shouldn't do. I am running. Mm-hmm. And if you want to stop me,
I wanted to ask you, it's so interesting. You talked about how, you were supposed to lose in 2020. You won. There was supposed to be a huge wave in 2022. There wasn't. In 2023, Republicans were supposed to win. They didn't. You could say the same thing about France. Le Pen was supposed to win in 2 years ago. She ended up getting crushed. Her party, her far-right nationalist extreme party was supposed to win yesterday. They ended up getting crushed. I'm curious, what message do you take from the French elections and the British elections? Because we keep hearing about the rise of far-right nationalist extremism in Europe. But I've got to say, it looks like this past week has been the worst week for far-right nationalists between Britain and France. I'm wondering what you say about that and what message you take to NATO allies this week.
So first and foremost, when he brings up those two countries, it's important that people understand that people in those countries have health care. People in those countries have benefits that Americans don't have. So this is another thing. When I talked about the French protests, and we'll get to France later on in the show, last year when I was covering all the protests that were happening in France and they were going all out and bam, 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 like they were like, F you, Macron, because he increased the retirement age. People have to understand, like when everybody in the country has health care, when everyone in the country has paid leave and paid family, more so paid family leave, everyone has paid vacation, everyone can get out into the streets like that. That's the big difference. People have to understand that they have benefits that we don't have. We have people working jobs here in the United States and they don't even offer any type of health insurance. So those aren't the best examples.
Look, Joe, let's get something clear about 20 and 24. Not only were they wrong, I said they were wrong beforehand. I said we were going to win and how we're going to win. I didn't pretend about it. It wasn't like, oh my God, I was surprised. I was not surprised. I predicted it. I knew what we were doing. Number one. Number two, you may remember, I was one of the few people out there publicly saying before the 2022 election, there will be no red wave. There will be no red wave. Because I've been all over the country. I didn't believe it at all. And then in 2023, the key elections, I went into those races. Not every one of them, but a lot of them. And I said we were going to win. Look, we won those. So, Joe, it wasn't just that it didn't happen. I was predicting beforehand it would not happen. Because I've got a pretty good political instinct and eye. And here's the deal. It's not going to happen here this time around. The American public is not going to move away from me as an average voter. And again, I'm here for two reasons, pal. One, to rebuild the economy for hardworking middle-class people, give everybody a shot. Just a straight shot. Everybody gets a fair chance, number one. Number two, remember all this talk about how I don't have the black support? Come on, give me a break. Come with me. Watch.
So you heard what he said there about having the black support. So black people, listen up. Hear what he just said. They tell me I don't have the black support. Watch. You know why he can say that? Because he knows that he doesn't have to do anything for us. The Democratic Party doesn't have to do anything for the black vote. They don't have to give black people any type of concessions. He knows that regardless, black people are still going to support the Democratic Party. Isn't that a damn shame? Notice how proudful he said it. No humility whatsoever. Even though the polls show that he is losing support among black voters. Very cocky. You can hear the ego in his voice. He just knows he just got us. How did we get into this situation? We got into this situation because we were convinced for years that we have to support the Democratic Party because the Republican Party is going to screw things over for us. They're going to implement laws that are going to hurt the African American community. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party isn't trying to help the African American community. They're trying not to implement any type of repair. None of that. So Joe Biden, that's why he sounds very cocky. You don't hear him say that about any other group of people. You don't hear him say that about Latino voters. You don't hear him say that about Asian American voters. It's just, oh, I know I just got them. Watch. That pisses me off.
I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party who they know so much more. But if any of these guys don't think I should run against me.
So that's where it's a mask off moment for Joe Biden, not for us that follow politics heavily. But here is Joe Biden admitting to the American people that the elites are the ones that are calling the shots, which is what I've been saying for years. You know what else was interesting about that comment? He says to Mika and Joe, the elites, oh, but not you guys, because he knows that they're elite too. Everybody catch that? Yeah, they're a part of the same type of bubble. These people are rich. And yes, the elites do call the shots, but Joe Biden takes money from these corporations. He takes money from these people who own these corporations. He's very much bought and captured. Now, he keeps saying the elites, but he is taking the most money from AIPAC out of any politician going all the way back to 1990. Joe Biden has received the most money from the Israeli lobby. So he is still in their back pocket. That is a lie. But the mask off moment is that he tells the American people publicly who's really running things.
Go ahead, announce the president. Challenge me at the convention. You know, on Europe, the polls are wrong in France. They're also right. There's no right wave or tide here in America either. By the way, in case you're wondering whether there is one, have you ever seen Trump run away so fast from what he's for? You know he's going to do it anyway, but he's such a liar. This guy everybody knows what they're planning to do. And now he's saying, no. This guy is going to rip away at a woman's right to choose in a permanent way. This guy is going to make sure that he exacts revenge. This guy's going to destroy democracy. This guy's going to give a blank check to the Supreme Court.
Who are we giving blank checks to? So Joe Biden is telling you that Donald Trump is going to take away women's rights. Has Donald Trump ever said that? And I keep bringing this up. Donald Trump has said that it belongs in the states. He doesn't agree that it belongs on the federal level, but he's been asked this multiple times. And I've never heard Donald Trump say that he was going to outlaw abortion, nationally or anything like that. But Joe Biden continues to repeat that rhetoric. Donald Trump could have done that when he was president. So that is one piece I do push back on about Donald Trump. However, that being said, I think that this is the fear mongering that the Democratic Party is continuing to use to try to get the voters to come out.
Use its past, the 2025 agenda. This guy's extremely dangerous. But you notice he doesn't speak up for what he really is for. He's all of a sudden realizing, oh my God, nobody's for what I'm for. But anyway, look, and again, think of the things he lied about. He talked about he gave the largest tax cut in history. Yeah, he gave the largest tax cut in history to millionaires and billionaires. He said that he's going to, the 10% universal tax proposal is not going to drive prices higher. Every major economist in the world is saying it's going to drive the average $2,500 per person.
So he's talking about Donald Trump driving prices high, but right now we have inflation, and we've had inflation. I'm trying to remember when we didn't have it, but we've had inflation for most of Joe Biden's presidency. So right now, again, that's not a bragging point. You can't sit up here and say, look, let's talk about the economy. I told you guys before, and I'm gonna keep it real. I do not like Donald Trump. I don't like Joe Biden, but the economy for me was better under Donald Trump. That's just me looking at my bank account. That's me looking at the numbers when I go to the store. That's me looking at the gas pump. And no, Pete Buttigieg, not all of us can afford to buy an electric vehicle to solve that problem. I don't know about you guys, but I can't afford to buy a new car. So there's that. So with the economy, that's where I think if Donald Trump beats Joe Biden, it is going to be on the economy. That's the only thing I can think of.
Only jobs he created for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs and bounce back from COVID. Give me a break. That's what he said at the convention. At the debate. Everything he said. He said, he largely fixed COVID. You kidding me? And what happened? Nobody said anything. Nobody said anything except me and the folks out there in the local, race. He said, I did nothing to stop Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In fact, he said, I think I encouraged Russia from going. I think he encouraged Russia going in. I'm reading from the list of lies. First of all, he was made up quotes, suckers and losers. I was with he called Americans in the cemeteries from World War I suckers and losers.
Pause for a second. Thank you for mentioning that, Aiden. Because at first, when I was listening to this conversation and I heard the page rumble, at first I thought maybe that was Mika and Joe, because they had papers on their desk here, right? On the table. They had papers there. But when it got to this part, notice that you can see Mika and Joe clear as day, and they're not touching any papers, which shows you that Joe Biden was reading notes. And why doesn't Joe Biden have this interview via video? Not to say you can't call into a show, you can, but considering what just happened, it does not look good. It's not a good look. LPA Film said, damn script. Yeah, you can tell he's reading something, right? You can kind of tell when he goes off script. So yeah, quite a doozy. That was his appearance on Morning Joe, but something else happened too. And this one is cray. And I hope you guys are ready for this one. Apparently, Joe Biden also made a radio appearance at a Philadelphia radio show. Now, the appearance is not so much the problem, although we can get into that too if you wanted to. But a big part of the problem is what one of those radio hosts revealed on CNN about the interview. And this is enough to send off flags for people in the Biden administration, because I don't think they were expecting this to happen. You got to see this. Philadelphia radio show. Joe Biden called in. CNN brought those two hosts onto CNN, basically, I guess, to try to help Joe Biden in some way, shape, or form. But it backfired, fam. Listen to this.
Before the president sat down with George Stephanopoulos, he spoke with two black radio hosts in the battleground states of Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Both are with me now. Earl Ingram is the host of the Earl Ingram Show in Milwaukee, and Andrea Lawful Sanders is the host of The Source on WURD in Philadelphia. Welcome to you both. Congratulations on such a big week. And Earl, let me start with you. And I'm going to play here the president's answer to your question about his performance in the debate. Here's what he told you.
I had a bad night. And the fact of the matter is that, I screwed up. I made a mistake. And but I learned from my father, when you get knocked down, just get back up. Get back up.
Did you hear the version of the president, similar to one we saw the debate, that alarmed so many Democrats? Gauge for me what your exchange was with the president.
Well, you're talking about a person, myself, who has followed the president for over 45 years. I've watched him from a very when I was a very young man to where he is now. Clearly, not just the president, but any person over a 45-year period there's going to be some changes to who they were, as there is with me. I'm not surprised that Joe Biden is not who he was 45 years ago. I am a little surprised that the Joe Biden of today is different from the Joe Biden of 2 years ago, of even a year ago.
How so?
Well, clearly, cognitively, anybody who hears him and knows of him and who he has been will detect that there are some differences in his speech. People attribute that constantly to the fact that he has a speech impediment. He's always had a speech impediment his entire life, but people hadn't been talking about the fact that he has a speech impediment until, the last few weeks. And clearly there's something that is different about President Joe Biden.
Yeah, he says that he.
So there you go. But I will debunk something here. He said that people haven't been talking about the speech impediment until recently. That's actually not true. People were talking about that during the 2020 Democrat primary debates. People made criticism there, too, about the speech impediment.
Will not be taking or releasing a cognitive test. Andrea, let me ask you here about your interviews and something. I listened to both of them, and there's something that's similar here. You each you asked 4 questions, and maybe that's what you were allowed to ask by the campaign or the White House. But they were essentially the same questions, both interviews, about accomplishments, progress in your respective state, what's at stake in the election, what he has to say about his debate performance, and what he would say to voters who think their vote doesn't matter or might sit this election out. Were those questions given to you by the White House, or the campaign, or did you have to submit questions ahead of this interview?
Here it is, folks. Now he's speaking to her right here in Philadelphia. Listen to what she says.
The questions were sent to me for approval. I approved of them.
Okay, so the White House sent the questions to you ahead of the interview?
Yes.
Okay.
I got several questions, 8 of them, and the 4 that were chosen were the ones that I approved.
Okay.
Everybody heard that. So the reason why Joe Biden was able to answer the questions so well is because the questions were already approved. He knew what they were going to ask him. He probably had the questions and the response written down right in front of him. And this was an interview on a Philadelphia radio show. From what I understand, too, it's a Black-owned station in Philadelphia. And this did not go so well for the radio host or the station once this was revealed on CNN. And she's just being honest. Hey, let's give her props for telling the truth. Damn. Let's give her props for telling the truth, because usually this does not happen. B said, wow, she said the quiet part aloud. She did. She told the truth. She could have just lied and protected the White House, but she didn't. So listen to the rest.
And the reason I ask is not a criticism of either of you. It's just that if the White House is trying now to prove the vim, vigor, acuity of the president, I don't know how they do that by sending questions first before the interview so that the president knows what's coming. Let me play here a bit of your interview. This is, and you've probably seen it's gotten a lot of attention. This is when he was asked about his accomplishments as president. Let's play it.
I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president, first black woman to serve with a black president.
That part right there is what sent shockwaves across the interwebs there. I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president, first black woman to serve with a black president. Now, I think we all know what he may have been trying to say there, that he is proud to be the first president to serve with the first black vice president, which we can get into the whole Kamala Black thing at another time. But the reality is, we gonna go down that road one day because we gonna debunk some things, okay? But I think we know what he meant to say, but it's what he said. So this went viral, and that's why this particular interview received so much attention.
Did you hear, as it's being covered, the president say that he was proud to be the first black woman president? Because that's what the headlines all over the internet are suggesting.
I find it interesting that they saw and heard that. What I got from him was that he was intimating that Kamala Harris was the first black woman vice president. And I guess with his speech impediment, they heard something else. And I find it interesting that that was the only thing that they picked out of that entire conversation and ran with it.
Pause for a second. So think about what she just said here, folks. I think we all just heard the same thing, right? Didn't we all just listen to the same thing? Right? So she's like, well, that's not what I heard. We just listened to this, right? Okay. Just checking, guys. Just checking.
Look, we have a hard way to go in this country. I am listening to the community that is speaking to me every single day on WURD radio. We are answering, looking at the things that are mattering to us. We can't afford to get excited and fumble and flumble about what folks are thinking about the president and his frailty and his speeches. We are concerned about the purging of the government in Project 2025. We have been talking about this on WURD since January, fully and completely, the slashing of the Department of Justice and dismantling the FBI and
guys,
replacing their traditional independence from political pressure with fealty to the administration.
She is upset about dismantling the FBI. She's upset about dismantling the FBI. Why is that a bad thing? You know, like, these are the things we need to talk about. Why are you mad about that? How is the FBI helping you and protecting you? The FBI who killed Fred Hampton? The FBI who killed MLK? The FBI who killed Malcolm X? You have a problem with people wanting to dismantle that organization? What? The FBI is not trying to help you, boo. The FBI is not trying to help your community. If anything, the FBI is trying to infiltrate your community and take your leaders out. I don't get it.
The things that matter to us in the Black community. So when I ask them, what matters most to you, that President Biden has this speech impediment or that he's slowing down versus the other person who has all these other things going on, they keep saying to me, we did it on Friday on The Source. We did it Thursday. We keep asking them. They keep saying the same thing. We want the Democrats to win because we feel like if we do anything else, it's going to be a problem for us. What I'm concerned about is that no one really seems to be in the community talking to the very people who has the vote.
So what community is she referring to? So obviously there's a bit of an accent there. So I would assume she's probably from the Caribbean, but what community is she referring to? Is she's talking about the Caribbean community in Philadelphia, or is she talking about, you know, the descendants of slavery community in Philadelphia? I would think those two groups want different things. And sorry, but I call it like I see it. And from my own experience, those two groups would want different things. Like, you sound like a whole ass clown out here saying, oh my God, they want to dismantle the FBI. But peep this, fam. Apparently, because she admitted that on CNN, that the White House gave her the questions prior to the interview, it appears the radio station has now decided to give her the boot. Peep this. Black-owned radio station cuts ties with the host who interviewed Biden. WURD, the Black-owned Pennsylvania radio station that landed the first interview with Biden after the presidential debate, said on Sunday it had parted ways with the host who interviewed him. The station said host Andrea Lawful Sanders had arranged the interview without knowledge, consultation, or collaboration with the WURD management and violated the station's independence by taking questions from the White House. Bam, bam, bam. The station also subtly called out the White House for the practice, arguing it contributes to a historic cycle of marginalizing Black voices. This practice of delegitimizing Black voice continues today. WURD radio is not a mouthpiece for the Biden or any other administration. Internally, we will commit to reviewing our policies, procedures, and practices to reinforce WURD's independence and trust with our listeners. But mainstream media should do its own introspection to explore how they have lost the trust of so many Americans, Black Americans chief among them. Well. So I'll give the radio station credit for coming out and saying we are not going to be a mouthpiece of any presidential administration. That's really the way it kind of should be. It sucks that someone had to lose their job over all this. And that's the way I kind of look at it. This woman is now without a job. Joe Biden's media appearances since the debate have not been favorable. The interview with George Stephanopoulos, we went through all of that. Okay. The call into Morning Joe, the appearance on the radio station. I mean, at the end of it all, I don't know if Joe Biden thinks that he's a Black woman. I don't know if Joe Biden knows where he's at. And I don't know if Joe Biden realizes what is happening right in front of his face when people, key Democratic players, are telling him that he needs to step down.